Good afternoon, everyone. This is Heidi Meyers. Today we're going to talk about U.S. economic sanctions. In particular, what is the definition of a U.S. person according to OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control? Now, most of you are somewhat familiar with U.S. immigration. Those of you who are here had to exert some kind of effort to come here, and so you might have an idea about definitions of terms for immigration. However, definitions for purposes of U.S. immigration are totally different from those for OFAC or economic sanctions. So, for example, a U.S. person who must comply with U.S. economic sanctions would include anyone who's physically present in the United States. So, for example, if you are a B1 visitor for business and you have been in the United States for only one day, because you happen to be here, you are considered a U.S. person and you must comply with U.S. economic sanctions rules. Or, for example, let's think of another example. You are an asylum applicant. You do not have work authorization. You do not have a social security number. However, for purposes of OFAC economic sanctions rules, you are considered a U.S. person and you must comply with economic sanctions. Now, the rules also apply to businesses, any kind of entity within the United States. So, for example, any type of U.S. corporation. Now, some of you might be familiar with the E-2 treaty investor visa rules. For purposes of an E-2 treaty investor, let's say you have a company here, a corporation, and it is more than 50% owned by Pakistani nationals. Now, for the E-2 visa, that would be considered a company with Pakistani nationality. Or another example might be you have a company here that's 100% owned by its Canadian parent company. In that situation, if you were looking for an E-2 visa, the company here would be considered to have Canadian nationality. No, so that's for purposes of U.S. immigration, for purposes of the E-2 treaty investor status. However, when you're thinking of in terms of U.S. economic sanctions, the rules are totally different. Both of those companies, because they are physically located in the United States, they are U.S. corporations, they would be considered U.S. persons for U.S. economic sanctions rules, and they would have to comply with all U.S. economic sanctions rules, for example, regarding Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, or checking if they're doing business with an SDN or, a drug trafficker or whatever. So just because you know something about U.S. immigration and terms used in U.S. immigration, we can see that the rules with economic sanctions are very, very different. I mean, totally different. So another aspect is you are considered a U.S. person if you are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, no matter where you are in the world, or even if you've been gone for a very long time. So let's take, for example, that you are a U.S. citizen who's been living abroad for more than 10 years. You haven't come back, you haven't visited, nothing. You are still a U.S. citizen. It doesn't matter where you are. You still have to comply with U.S. economic sanctions law. So as we can see, you can't generalize from whatever you know about U.S. immigration and try to carry it over to the rules for economic sanctions. The same thing applies with the IRS, which is the United States Taxing Authority. Their definition of a U.S. resident for income tax purposes is just totally different from either immigration's rules or from OFAC's rules. So each agency has their own definitions that they follow that are very specific. And like I said, anybody who's here in the U.S., regardless of immigration status, the point is that you must comply with U.S. economic sanctions rules. All right, so that is it for today. This is part of my ongoing series on doing business in the United States from the point of view of an immigrant. And if you have any suggestions for topics, I'm happy to hear them and address them. So once again, I'm Heidi Meyers. I'm an attorney. I specialize in U.S. immigration law, and I also work on economic sanctions issues. I'm at 11 Broadway, Suite 925, New York, New York, 10004. Our phone number is 212-791-4007 or 646-508-5225. We are located in downtown Manhattan, right by Battery Park and the Museum of the American Indian. We also, we're available for in-person consultations, but we're also available for virtual consultations by Skype, Google Hangouts, Cisco WebEx, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. All right. That's it for today, folks, and don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my channel. Once again, this is part of our ongoing series on doing business in the United States from the perspective of an immigrant. And that's it for today, folks. So thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.